U.S. Attorneys Keyes, Heap, and I will each talk about a few of the cases that are underway in our respective districts, each involving significant seizures, some of the fruits of which are displayed here in front of me. The multi-agency collaboration at the federal, state, and local levels, and the transnational nexus to all of these cases.
Everyone. Thank you for being here today as we announce the launch of the Homeland Security Task Force Network here in Atlanta, a city that is known for being central to our mission in protecting communities.
FBI agents here in Atlanta say they just seized enough drugs to kill millions of people. Atlanta News First, Bridget Spencer is live from the FBI Atlanta field office. And Bridget, fentanyl, that wasn't the only thing they found.
Tracy, we're not only talking about that staggering amount of fentanyl you mentioned, but also items related to distributing the fentanyl on the streets of Atlanta. Now, the Clayton County Police Department partnered with the FBI's Homeland Security Task Force during the search warrant execution last week at a rental home in Forest Park. Now, inside, they tell us they found 21 kilos of fentanyl, as well as $380,000 in cash, guns, and even a money counter. Now, Rico DeVille Bice, he is the one arrested, as well as David Esteban Montillo Diaz, both arrested and charged with conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute. Now, one suspect, we're told, is from Atlanta, and the other, Diaz, has ties to California.
We believe that Diaz's connection to California is significant because we know, as mentioned earlier, the Mexican drug cartels smuggle fentanyl into our country over the southwest border.
And investigators do say, although this was a big hit to the drug industry, the fight is far from over. They say they still have a lot of work left to do when it comes to keeping drugs off the streets of Atlanta and elsewhere in Georgia. We're live in Atlanta. Bridget Spencer, Atlanta News First.
Tonight, federal agents say 2 men are in custody after breaking up a fentanyl trafficking operation in Forest Park. 11 Live's Doug Richards joins us now from the newsroom. Doug, what tipped him off here?
Well, federal agents kind of play that close to the vest, but they say that when they descended upon a property in Forest Park, a man took off on foot. Agents chased him down. When they caught up with him, they say that they found $3,000 cash on his person. Then they went to the nearby Airbnb, which they said was his base of operation, and they found $380,000 in cash. That plus 21 kilos of fentanyl, a money counting machine, a plastic shrink wrapping device they say was used to package the illicit drugs. Agents said today that a drug task force based in Atlanta delivered this and other arrests in an effort to trace drug operations to the source.
To not just focus on a low-level dealer in a community, but how do we look at the enterprise? What is behind that for the distribution network and the supply network? And our goal is to trace it all the way back to the cartels and hold them accountable and bring them to justice.
Federal agents identify the 2 suspects as Rico DeVille Bice and David Esteban Montillo Diaz. A federal grand jury will sort out the charges against them.
All right, Doug, quite the...
It's coming from the cartel and these organizations. It's coming from a source coming into the country and then distributed on a local level in these communities like Athens, like Macon in the Middle District of Georgia, hitting the street and then being distributed by gangs and local distributors. And that flow of drugs, that's not an opinion, that's a fact. You can trace the pattern, and that's how drugs flow through our community. And so these drugs like fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, they poison our community, but they have second order effects and spillover effects like addiction, like overdose, like violent crime in our community. And the individuals who profit the most from that distribution are often not in our country, and they're profiting, making the most money out of it. That's the problem. And so we're here to get the attention of law enforcement.
Authorities say they also found 9 guns. During this multi-agency operation, warrants were executed at businesses and homes in Sandy Springs, Atlanta, and Woodstock. 3 men were arrested, 2 from Mexico, the 3rd from Sandy Springs. They were booked into the Cherokee County Jail. The GBI says they have connections to a Mexican cartel.
They held this big press conference to bring the whole state up to speed, letting the media and the public know exactly what's been happening with these new arrests all across Georgia state. They brought every agency together moving like one giant unit under what they're now calling the Homeland Security Task Force, HSTF, government, state, local. Everybody linked up trying to clean up the streets and trace these cases all the way back to the big suppliers. And now, Future's brother, FBG Casino, got swept up in one of these major operations that been shaking things up across Georgia lately. The story started bubbling in the media a few days after the arrest happened last week, but once that press conference dropped yesterday, the whole situation exploded everywhere. Atlanta News first picked it up, 11 Alive pushed it out too, and suddenly this case was all over the news like wildfire. I added that other clip so everyone can see how deep they were moving through Atlanta, pulling up on different spots, hitting weed operations, seizing product, shutting down setups. The whole rundown was wild. You can look back over these last few months and see this whole operation building up because it didn't just pop out of nowhere. They finally dropped the full write-up to lay out more details on the arrest, and that's where things really got serious for FBG Casino. If you've been following Future since the early days, then you've been seeing Casino too. He'd been around forever, popping up more and more when Future started taking off. About 10 years back, when they were dropping those Free Band Gang mixtapes, Casino was everywhere. He had his own music, linked with different artists, even showed up with Young Scooter. They were all moving as FBG, pushing together, and you probably seen him in videos from back then. When that federal sweep happened years ago, his name was connected to that show of force too. And now we're here again with this new situation hitting the news where he's facing some heavy federal accusations, still innocent until proven guilty, but the details are wild. They say he had cash on him at the scene, and the whole setup was already under deep investigation, with agents tracking everything for a long time. According to the documents, Atlanta residents Rico DeVille Buis and David Esteban Montello were arrested and hit with federal complaints accusing them of conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute fentanyl. Luis and Diaz appeared in federal court on November 19th, 2025, right after law enforcement executed a search warrant tied to this same operation. Agents hit a rental home in Forest Park and uncovered a massive setup. 21 kilograms of fentanyl, around $380,000 in suspected drug money, and a firearm, according to U.S. Attorney Hertzberg. All of this came out during the court presentation from November 14, 2025, and the details show how deep the operation went. The FBI Atlanta Division, DEA Atlanta field officers, and Clayton County Police pulled up together and executed the search warrant at the rental property. As soon as law enforcement approached, Rico DeVille Buis ran out a side door trying to escape, but agents caught him fast and found roughly $4,000 on him during the arrest. After that, David Montello stepped out of the residence, and once officers went inside, the whole picture became clear. In both the kitchen and a bedroom, they found an estimated 21 kilograms of fentanyl, close to $300,000 in rubber-banded stacks of cash, a money counter, a food sealing machine, and a Glock 19 pistol. The setup looked straight out of a crime scene documentary. Then they located another $80,000 stuffed inside a designer bag that investigators say allegedly belonged to Buis. Everything inside that house showed this wasn't some small-time situation. It was a full operation running right in the middle of Forest Park. Rico DeVille Buis, known as FBG Casino, 41, from Atlanta, and David Esteban Montello Diaz, 23, from Coachella, California, are both in custody right now. And with Homeland Security stepping in along with all these government agencies, it's clear somebody already gave information behind the scenes. That level of involvement means investigators cracked phones, tracked locations, checked who was communicating with who, listened to calls, pulled text threads, DMs, everything they could grab under the law. When Homeland Security touches a case like this, it turns into a full breakdown of every move made, even though they're still innocent until proven guilty. And with fentanyl involved, the situation gets even heavier because the courts treat that substance as extremely dangerous, especially with how they measure its impact. That's why you hear officials saying tiny amounts can take a person's life. They run tests and use those measurements to show the level of danger in these cases. In the courtroom, prosecutors will highlight numbers like that to make the situation look extreme, pushing the narrative that the amount found could harm a massive number of people. They do it to sway the public, to sway the courtroom, and to make things tougher if the defendant decides to take the case to trial. Because once they start breaking down those numbers, everything gets intense fast. With all this coming out, the public started talking fast because the paperwork showed this operation wasn't some quick setup. Investigators had been tracking movements, vehicles, bank patterns, and locations for a long time. Every agency involved was watching different pieces until they finally pulled it all together for this takedown. And once FBG Casino's name got attached to the case, the story exploded even louder because people been seeing him around the industry for years. His face popping up in federal documents made folks question how deep his connection really was, even though he hasn't been convicted of anything. What makes it even wilder is how fast the story spread online. One minute it was a local report, the next minute every blog, every news page, and every social feed was pushing it. People started dropping old clips, interviews, and photos trying to figure out how long investigators had their eyes on this circle. Now everybody's waiting to see what the next court update brings, because when federal charges stack up like this and Homeland Security is involved, the case moves in a whole different way. The entire situation turned into one of the biggest headlines Georgia has seen in a minute, and everybody's locked in to see what happens next. As the dust settled, more details from the press conference started popping up, and officials made it clear they're not slowing down. They said this operation was only one branch of a much bigger investigation, and more arrests could follow as they connect different crews, different locations, and different money trails across the state. People online instantly started debating whether more names from the entertainment world might get pulled into this, since Casino's connection brought heavy attention to the case. Every time a new file dropped, fans and bloggers jumped on it, trying to decode who else might have been around these spots or mentioned in these documents. Agents also explained that the fentanyl amounts they recovered weren't normal street-level numbers. They said it lined up with cartel-level distribution patterns, which is why Homeland Security stepped in so aggressively. That single detail alone had social media going wild because it pushed the case from local bust to major federal operation in minutes. Now, the next court dates are about to hit, and that's when the real picture will start forming. Who's fighting the charges, who's cutting deals, and who's staying silent while their lawyers handle everything. The whole situation got everybody watching closely because with the amount of evidence the agencies claim to have, the courtroom battle ahead is looking intense already. That's how they present it. That's how they frame those fentanyl numbers to make the whole situation look huge in the public eye. And honestly, this is one of those tough situations because Future is one of the biggest artists in the world, a certified legend. So anything tied to his family is instantly going to blow up louder than normal. But his brother was allegedly living a completely different lifestyle outside the music world, and nobody really knows the full truth yet. What is clear is that investigators are locked in tight because they've been showing other arrests too. Surveillance on homes across Atlanta and all over Georgia, targeting different crews, dispensaries, liquor spots, and setups they say were tied to bigger operations. In one raid, they claimed they found 500 pounds. In another, they said the suspects were connected to cartel activity. So this whole thing is way bigger than one headline. Seeing Casino's name in the documents just made it hit the mainstream in a whole different way, especially since the news had been floating around quietly earlier in the week before the official paperwork went public. It's a wild situation, especially with everything Future's family has already dealt with recently, including losing Scooter not long ago. There's a lot happening behind the scenes, and everyone's waiting to see what comes next as more details roll out, because this case is moving fast and it's only getting deeper. Before you dip out, make sure you subscribe to Dripzine, share the video, drop a comment, smash that like button, and help the algorithm spread the news by clicking that Hype This Video button. It's free, but it means a lot to me. Thank you.